We're going to get started. I think I've done enough of that here, so I don't know if I can do the entire. This is heavy. This is ridiculously heavy. So we'll get started right now. So first of all, welcome. My name's Larry Herb, Xbox Live's Major Nelson. I work on the Xbox team. I always want to thank you. Oh, look at you guys. I was on the team that shipped the Xbox 360 and Xbox Live. I've been with the team for about 10 years. And I'm also obviously involved with Xbox One. So very excited to be here. There goes my nameplate. You can keep that if you want, sir. Thank you. We're really excited to be here to talk about Ryse. We're going to go right down. We're going to introduce the panel. We're going to do some Q&A. We're going to show you some stuff that has never been seen before, right, guys?
Yeah, we got a couple things.
All right, so why don't we get started right here with you, Justin?
I'm Justin Roby, senior producer for Microsoft Studios. I'm on multiplayer and then talking about smart glass and some other stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Justin. Next up we have...
To my left is the best hair of the team.
That would be me, in case you were wondering. I am the cinematic art director and co-writer of Ryse. So I think I actually did some work on it somewhere in there. And with the not so wonderful hair next to me.
Yeah, sort of. It's a competition. My name is Mike Reed. I'm a producer at Crytek. I get involved in a little bit of everything. Sometimes beating up this guy and sometimes Justin, but it's all in good fun.
Yeah. True, very true, very true.
All right, we're gonna get right into it. First of all, guys, thank you for coming over. For those of you who don't know, the game is being developed over there at Crytek, which is over in Germany.
Yep.
So these guys flew in from Germany to answer your questions, have some fun, and take your Q&A. So let's get right to it. Who wants to field the first question? Is where did the idea for Ryse come from? The story, and take us on the journey of the development process there. Who wants to take that one?
How far do you want to go back with that?
If it's all the way to the beginning, Justin.
Wow.
Sorry, Mike.
No, Justin's been on the project longer than anybody.
Longest, that's funny. So I remember what we. Oh. So I remember. It started a while ago, and what happened was that we had Crytek come and pitch the game to us. At the beginning, it was a first-person melee title. And then it eventually became a Kinect-only title, which I think some of you guys saw at E3 around about a year and a half ago when Microsoft started going to thinking about next gen. We had Crytek present to them, hey, what do you guys want to do when you think about next gen? And I don't know, many of you guys have played the Crysis games, I hope. Many of you guys might just be sitting in the seat to save your seat for the next panel. That's totally fine too. But these guys are really known for their visual stuff, and so they presented 3 ideas, and it kind of landed on the Roman third-person action game, and that's when Peter took over and can take it from there. So it originally was like a medieval game, and then it became Rome.
Now, how many people have played Crytek games? All right, there you go. He's got some fans out there. Talk a little bit. Who can take care of this one? Tell me a little bit about how controller and Kinect and the decision or the design decision around using those.
Okay. Originally, when we talked about the Xbox 360, Crytek, being known for their tech, really wanted to nail what Kinect for the core meant. They felt as a technology company they could nail that. And then the design decision to move when they wanted to go to a higher visual fidelity and really just nail graphics, feel, and story, they wanted a different approach, and so that's when it went from using Kinect in a way that felt more appealing to how they told the story. And so then it became more of a controller-based game at that juncture.
But there are still Kinect elements in there. Let's talk about what that is, and if you can talk through that a little bit.
Yeah. So we have a couple of interesting things. One of the things that we'll talk about a little bit later is we actually have Kinect control of Smart Glass, which is really interesting. And then Shavat really wanted to have it feel like when you're commanding troops. being that guy who's yelling and saying those things like rally, fire archer. So it's more around the command of your troops, and that's really where the Kinect elements, those Kinect elements fit in, right? Right, Michael? Yeah, that's...
Yeah, I would say that's probably where it's going to. And then, I mean, over time, I mean, it's not to discount Kinect in any way. I mean, if you've seen any of the demos and stuff that Microsoft's been showing off about the Kinect specifically and where it's going, I think over time and over the next couple of years anyways, you're going to see those developer kits become a lot more powerful and a lot more Kinect integration. But it didn't really go with where we wanted to go with the game, and moving into the next generation with Xbox One, you know, it didn't really fit in with that at that point. So we've integrated that into the game, but at the same point, we didn't want it to feel forced for the gameplay itself.
Yeah, Kinect's working right now, and it can tell that my heart rate is going pretty fast, and I'm actually sweating at 20 droplets per second. And if you want to...
It is,
and that's
crazy.
not even playing the game.
That's not even playing the game. Yeah.
That's normal.
It's normal.
Let's talk about the core elements of Ryse and the story, obviously without too many spoilers, but tell us about the story and what we can expect in the game.
Well, when I got involved with Ryse, the story was already sort of formed in the sense that there was a treatment. And the way we approached it was very much like you would approach a movie. So from the get-go, we really wanted to put emphasis on the cinematic experience. So what we did is we said from the get-go, let's do this the way we do a movie. Let's not, you know, have a cool character and some fun gameplay and then try to like shoehorn some story into that. Let's start from the beginning. Let's, you know, design a story, design a character that fits with that story and build a world around that. So that's what we set out to do when I joined. And we basically wrote a full screenplay that, you know, takes you through the journey of Ryse. And the story itself is a story about Marius Titus, who's a Roman legionnaire. And we meet him as he comes back to Rome after basic training, so to speak. And his family gets killed in front of his eyes, and he sort of sets out on a journey to the furthest reaches of the empire to sort of get his vengeance, to exact his vengeance on the barbarians that, you know, kill his family. But there's always a twist.
Yeah, and the cool thing about, I think one of the things that really helps is with Xbox One, we try to give people like Peter the visual ability to tell those stories in a way that wasn't possible before. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about performance capture and things. But, you know, Peter, I remember when he first did his introduction, he stood up and he says, hey, my name's Peter Gornstein, and, you know, I don't want to have video games where it's like, hey, I'm happy to have you here, and like having all robot. He was really big about making sure that the animation and the cinematics and the performance capture really sold the story. So that was an important part of him when he thought about that.
Yeah, I think at my job interview, you guys asked me, so which games do you play? And I was like, I don't play that many games. I'm a film guy. And they're like, we want you. So it was a little bit of an unorthodox sort of introduction to me getting on board the team, because I come from television and movies. So
yeah, J.J. Abrams was busy, so.
Well, come on, let's be honest. I took JJ.
But apparently his hair wasn't busy.
Back off me, man. Back off.
Peter, I want to talk a little bit about that. You mentioned the fact that your background is in film and television.
Right.
So you've been working on this project for quite some time. What has it been like with that transition? What are some things that you brought from the television and motion picture background? And what are some of the new things that you're like, wow, I can finally do this? You know, tell us about the different having your feet on both sides of the tracks.
Well, I mean, once I saw what the new CryEngine and Xbox One could do technology-wise, and you know, I sort of realized how big the sandbox is. I mean, the only other place you can get this kind of sort of massive set of toys to play with is if you're doing like massive, large-scale Hollywood, big-budget movies, right? And only a handful of people get to do that. So the second best thing was to do a movie within a game, within a movie, within a game, and make that awesome, right? So the sandbox and what we could do is just amazing. I mean, with the technology and where it's headed,
and there is a
it's
massive
big.
crossover that's happening between Hollywood and the games industry. And that doesn't mean that games as a whole are going to change from what you see now, but more of an extension of what you see on that. I mean, at E3, we sat down with J.J. Abrams and Steven Spielberg, who came by to see the game, and talked a little bit about them. I think Peter was in for most of that.
Yeah, that was really cool. I mean, we both had Steven.
He's very excited about
my
that.
Facebook picture with me and Steven is like, my eyes are like this big. I'm like, ah! You know.
And I shoehorned my head right in between the two of them. So
Mike is in there and back, like, ah, you know. So yeah, no, it was cool. I mean, I had a talk with Steven, and he was like, "Yeah, it's really scary to do performance capture," and I was like, "Yeah, it is."
Now, Peter, I want to talk to you, well, actually the entire panel here, because it's vastly different writing and developing a video game that is a motion picture. I mean, we've all been to the movies. We sit in a room just like this. We stare at a screen that's behind us for 2.5 hours, and then you leave. Versus video games, where you, the player, is at the center of the action. And you have no idea when the player comes into a room or an area if they're going to spend 10 minutes in here, which took 2 or 3 months to develop, or is the player just going to go whoop, right through and go to the other side and continue moving on with the story? I mean, it's very different from a storytelling and a technical perspective. Right. Talk about that and the challenges there.
Well, I mean, obviously, you don't have the luxury of putting people in a room and turning off the light and having their complete attention for 2 hours or whatever.
In a linear conversation.
Yeah, in a linear sense. I mean, people can pick up the game, they can leave again, they can come back. There could be weeks between that, there could be days between that. So you really have to make sure that you're always story-wise keeping the audience with you on that trail, right? So you kind of have to be a little less subtle, I would say, sometimes in terms of the story, and you have to recap your story, right? So you don't want to lose your audience and have them forget what the story is about. So we put a lot of emphasis in, without being too on the nose, as we say, just to really sort of play the story in a way that it would be easy for the player to pick it up again in case they've been away for a while.
Tell us about the challenges in story writing for the game.
Well, I mean, what we really tried to do is work it as we do with a movie. I mean, the challenge, of course, being that we have a lot of limitations. It's not when we put characters in there. It's not like we can just say endless amount of characters, or we can do endless stuff. We can do a lot. The technology is really powerful. We can have a lot of cool scenarios, cool effects, cool characters. But we have a lot of technical specifications and stuff that you wouldn't even think about when you were doing a movie, for instance.
For instance?
Yes. A good example. What would be a good example of that?
You don't really deal with so many programmers, though.
Yeah, exactly.
In the film side.
Well, in the films, when you shoot a film and you storyboard, you shoot a film, it's very linear, right? You do the whole process. But when you're doing a game, it's much more sort of back and forth. I'll say, oh, so the scene's like this, and they'll be like, could I say elephants, for instance, coming down this slope or something like that, right? And then people come back, yeah, that's not going to happen for so-and-so reason. They go, yo, it's got to happen, and you got a big back and forth about that. So if that had been a normal film, you would have rented 5 elephants, and you would have had them run down the slope, and that would have been the end of that, right? So there are challenges moving back and forth. It's very like doing video games is sort of more of a 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So it's just like games. It's not a very linear production form. It's back and forth.
But when you're writing for characters, you also have to, that's one of the strongest things. I mean, we've all played games where the game looks great, but the characters kind of suck, and you kind of put your controller down, and you're like, I'm done with this. Whereas we play these amazing emotional experiences, like a BioShock, where you get so invested in the characters, or a Mass Effect, that you have to keep playing. And that's a challenge too, is to create these compelling characters and have them come to life off the screen.
Right. I mean, one of the reasons why I got really excited about the project was that with the new CryEngine and with Xbox One, you could finally get the fidelity and the facial animation in on the characters, so you can develop a really strong emotional connection with the character, and that was hugely important moving forward. I mean, there's nothing worse than watching a character that doesn't show any emotion. I mean, one of the things I really wanted to focus on was like people investing in the character. So we spent a lot of time developing the story, making sure the characters were 3-dimensional, that they had real conflicts, real issues to deal with, not just like I'm saving the world kind of stuff.
Yeah. I want to talk, at E3, we saw one of the characters, Marius. Tell us about some of the other characters and what we can expect in Ryse.
Well, I mean, there's a huge sort of palette of characters. We have the Emperor's family, his brothers, his son. We have like a various series of barbarians. I think that's Marius, the hero. We might want to turn down the light for that, probably.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry, who are we looking at here?
This is Marius. That's the main character.
Right.
And this is sort of a later stage in the game where he's sort of become a general. So a lot of the story is about sort of his rise through the Roman army. And of course, he meets a bunch of interesting adversaries that he's got to fight in order to sort of achieve his sort of
Look at that armor.
His general status. Yeah, another one of the challenges that we faced is the Roman experience. It's a pretty well-trodden road. I mean, it's been done a lot of times. So when we sat down, one of the challenges that we really faced was how do we make it Roman but still make it unique? And we decided early on that in order to do that, we really needed to sort of step out of the box. And we early on married, in collaboration with Microsoft, we came up with what we thought was a really strong design profile for Ryse, and we married Art Deco with classical Rome, which I don't think has ever been done before. And it took us a long time to sort of get it, but when I think we finally got it right, we really came up with something that looks uniquely Roman, but also looks very uniquely Ryse.
And we also started off with the game being more of a historically accurate sort of thing. I think Peter went back through that, and given the limitations and where we wanted to go in the future with the story and the elements in here, we moved away from that. But we still inherited a lot of things like the various individuals and historians we brought in to talk about the combat and the look of the armor and certain things that were of that era. And we kind of combined that into our own sort of pieces.
So I just want to point out, these are in-game captures as it exists right now.